start the
Yep.
talk.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Tushar, and thank you, Akhil, for inviting me to give this talk. So yeah, first, I'm clearly audible, right? Is there any issue, Tushar?
No, Pranav, you're audible.
No, no issues, no issues.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. So yeah, hi guys, good morning. It's really nice to know that NAFCOM Foundation and thingQbator are taking such initiatives in order to promote more entrepreneurs from colleges, and that's something that probably and for me also it would have been like a major advantage when I was starting off. Um so probably just to give you guys a bit about myself, adding on to a bit about what Tushar said. Yeah, I graduated. I did my mechanical engineering from VIT Vellore, and I graduated in 2019. So both my co-founder and I, both Tuhin, my co-founder, and I, both of us graduated in 2019, and we initially started off working on an assistive tech product, which was basically a product for the visually impaired community, where we were building a text-to-speech and braille converter. So this was something that we started off as a pet project back in college in our third year. Uh, so we were fortunate enough to continue working on that through our company as well, and we gotten a grant from DST, and we gotten few grants from VIT as well to take the project forward. So in this regard, yeah, in 2019, immediately after I completed my graduation, we got incubated in the business incubator in VIT, and we were working on a product. And the goal was to initially try to build up a really good team or in order to be able to deliver the product, because the product was an extremely complicated product. It involved a lot of deep understanding of material sciences and things like that, because we were trying to build an actuation system for braille, which was it was a refreshable braille display ideally. So we were trying to build an actuation system for that, which involved a lot of in-depth research and understanding of how the whole mechanism worked. And we had come up with a mechanism that was pretty novel, reducing the price of braille devices by 30%, and in turn putting braille devices in the hands of a lot more people. So that was the target when we set out for both of us. So we started in 2019 with these grants. We had good support from a lot of we joined the assistive technology accelerator and things like that. So we had a really good support system to go about building the product. And in March of 2020, when the pandemic struck, we had a minimum viable product in hand. We started testing it. We were in our phase of trials, and then yeah, the pandemic struck, and we were not able to proceed with the trials. And basically, we had a product in hand with no one, we could use, and we didn't have, let's say, enough money to scale it as well. We had enough money for a minimum viable product, but we just had grants, so we didn't have any investment or funding to scale it as well. And the whole assistive tech market works because the assistive technology market is not necessarily, your classical what do I say, a phone. It's not a phone or anything like that where, my target market becomes everyone. It's something that's, very niche. Our targets were, very lower, and it's just not very, appealing to investors, and which is very valid. Right? That's the whole ecosystem works, and that sector does have a lot of support from, you know, uh, there are a lot of grants, there are a lot of, you know, uh, organizations that are supporting assistive tech startups, but not necessarily, it's not a very conventional way to run a company. So that added a lot of complications to how we wanted to go about, growing our entrepreneurial journey. So that's when we decided that that product required more than what we had at that point. That product was not completely, it was a product that was not ready to hit the market because we weren't ready with the technology. It was a product that, and we didn't have enough money to mass produce as well at that time. So what we did was, in between the pandemic, because we had a good team, and there's this work from home culture and everything started coming in, and we were a hardware company, right? So that complicated a lot of things. So basically, through the pandemic, what happened was we just had to shift everything that was in our office in the incubator to my home, and it was basically working, three of us working out of Chennai, right, trying to put something together. And yeah, and as so for me, like, all of this entrepreneurial journey and everything started initially as a person who was really fascinated by technology and building random things, right? So in that also made me want to build a few things for the COVID situation where we were trying to build a prototype ventilator. We were working on face shields. We even we designed some face shields which was like later on mass produced and sold and things like that. So we did those things, but we were never really able to scale this particular product. So what we thought was, okay, let's start taking on a few. We knew what skill sets we had, which was primarily product design, hardware design. We knew those skill sets, and we decided why not, just take up a few, let's say, service-based projects in order to sustain the company till then, and till when we are able to, start trials and get feedbacks from the customers, because the Braille project was in a situation where we really needed feedback from customers to proceed, and that was no situation for us to, be able to do that. So we started doing that. We started doing some product design work. We started working with a startup to design their whole technology for a bionic arm and things like that. So while we were doing those things, one thing that we did realize was as a team, most of our team was already had experience with robotics, including like, so my whole college life was mostly, it was with robotics, be it going abroad for competitions and representing the college. Everything was, in the field of robotics, and so my team was also pretty much inclined towards that. All of us were, very fascinated by what we could achieve with as a robotics company. So that's when we decided, okay, let's probably try to streamline. This is probably an opportunity that we have to pivot into something that is more, in our zone than what we were doing before. And it was basically just the flexibility of us having just us having the flexibility to be able to do that, which wouldn't have been possible without a good team that we already had in place. And so the pandemic, really forced us to do that pivot into robotics. And what we did in turn was trying to look for more robotics based projects. Try to do some. We were working with a few clients in the US through in between the pandemic, working on some designs for them, building some robots. So I was basically building robots in my grandmom's backyard, cutting stuff and things like that, in order to be able to put something together, a proof of concept that we could show to clients, and scale from there on. So yeah, when this was going on, we got this huge contract where we kind of had the opportunity to build about 12 mobile robots which would work simultaneously in order to automate a fully a kitchen. Basically, in order to automate a kitchen, we were building 12 autonomous mobile robots, and this was a contract from a client in the US, and this gave us some bit of confidence that, okay, we are heading in the right direction. Now it's about how do we scale from here and get things on board, right? Uh, so that happened, and once we got that contact, yeah, we had, as I said, thankfully we had a team in place, which was very easy to put these things together. We had, a proposal put together. We had a proof of concept design, and yeah, and the client, we somehow convinced the client, because we were also running out of cash, so we had to convince the client to, be able to pay us in advance. And for a young team like us, it's not something that many clients would want to do, to give us that money upfront and trust us with that. So that was, we were very fortunate in that front as well. So the client gave us the money to start off with that project. He gave us like a advance for that, and we started working on it. And once, probably around last August, when things started settling in a bit and lockdowns were getting relaxed, we decided, now it's probably time for us to get a small space in order to be able to scale the business. So what it was, yeah, again, I think going back to college, one thing that I always did very consciously in college was building a network, making sure, I have people who can back me and who can, help me out. I mean, it works both ways, right? So that was something that I was very constantly aware of. And this is when that came handy. So there was professor from my alma mater, VIT itself, who who was the vice chancellor at VIT before, and he was right now principal in another university in Chennai. So I was working very closely with him during college, and so that led to us. So I worked on quite a few projects with him. We had gone to Harvard to present the projects and things like that. Present the project and things like that. So he was more than happy to support us at that time, even though we were not in a situation where we could spend for an office space and things like that. So he was more than happy to support us, and we got a lab in his university because the students were anyway not working. So all of us shifted close to that university. About four of us. It was basically four of us trying to put together this one autonomous mobile robot, so that it can start working. And till September, yeah, this was going. We had a proof of concept done, and we were constantly, on the lookout for fundraise and things like that. And one thing was we were very clear was we wanted to build a self-sustaining business as soon as possible, not really rely on fundraising. It was we were heading in a direction where even if the fundraise didn't happen, maybe the business would grow slowly, but we would still, be, let's say, a operating company doing what we love. So that was the goal. And thankfully, we were pitching to a few people. We were talking to quite a few investors. There were people because this market is growing very fast. The whole robotic space in general is growing very fast, and on top of that, the whole autonomous mobile robots market slash AGV for material handling that's growing even more faster because there are warehouses coming up. There are storage facilities coming up. Efficiencies like now when we give proposals to clients, we notice how our robots can increase their efficiency at least 3x. So it's something that people want to invest in right now. There's a saturation point that the industry has hit, and it's a market that's not going to ever let's say end. So considering all this, quite a few investors were very interested in us. But for us as founders, the goal was we had to build something groundbreaking. We had to build something that was turning eyes, and we knew that be it with the Braille product, be it with what we were, and be it our capabilities, right? So we are people who just graduated a couple of years back. So we necessarily don't have the experience, or we're not going to get that experienced people on board that quickly as well. So considering all this, we knew that for that groundbreaking thing, you need, especially in hardware, you need a lot of money. You can't build hardware. How much ever we have all these DIY stuff. We have Arduinos, we have these Raspberry Pis and things like that just doesn't cut it out when you want to put a product out there and when you want it to be industry ready. So building hardware is pretty expensive, and considering all this, we knew that we need to build a solid platform. We need to build a solid team, and we necessarily didn't need to focus on that let's say that moonshot, which was our end goal. But we decided, yeah, let's start off with what IDD can give us that entry into the market, into the robotics market, and slowly work our way up from there. So that's been our strategy overall. So in that sense, these autonomous mobile robots are pretty, there are quite a few companies working on it, but standardization, accuracy, precision, reliability, these are not things that are currently very common in India at least. So goal was, yeah, there's a huge gap there, the way the robotics market is structured in India, and we decided it's something that we can definitely capitalize on. So we were pitching these ideas to a few investors, and that's when 100x came on, and that was probably one of the most accelerating moments for our journey, for both me and Twin in our journey as entrepreneurs. So 100x basically is, let's say, I'm sure most of you would have heard of Y Combinator, right? In San Francisco. So Y Combinator is essentially, I usually call it, whenever people ask me about YC, I usually call it the Stanford for startups of sorts. So it's like once you're in YC, you pretty much have a lot of things cut out because YC adds a lot of credibility to you as an entrepreneur. So 100x is kind of trying to do that in India because in India that ecosystem is not very prevalent at this point. Although Y Combinator does take quite a few startups from India, but yeah, so 100x does that for India, and what along with 100x, what we got was as early stage entrepreneurs and people just starting off, we got a lot of credibility because all the partners at 100x are people who are well established in their fields. For example, 100x is run by Sanjay Mehta, who is a very you know, very famous investor. If I have to say, he's one of the early investors in Oyo. He's one of the early investors in CoinDCX. He's a very influential investor. So having him on board on our cap table really adds a lot of credibility to us as entrepreneurs. Be it when we approach clients, be it when we approach other investors. So yeah, so 100x started off with an initial seed fund of 25 lakhs in September last year, and we slowly decided to scale the team. We knew that okay, we have this 25 lakhs and this is the runway that we have, and now we would have to do a next fundraise pretty soon. And 100x has this demo day at the end of they have a full 2 month long I wouldn't call it a course, but a boot camp of sorts where we got to meet with the We got to meet with very senior executives of Ola. We got to meet. So one of our current investors is also, the person behind Sony Live, Mr. Uday Sodhi. So he's a lead investor, and he is the one who built Sony Live from ground up, right? And we got to meet with the founder of Meru Cabs. We got to meet with quite a few. With a lot of interesting people. I don't know if you guys have heard of Ambi Parmeshwaran, who's kind of like a marketing genius right now in India. So we got to meet with a lot of these people who gave us a lot of interesting perspectives. And at the end of this whole boot camp with 100x, we had a demo day where we had the opportunity to interact with almost 1,000 investors who were interested in our product and willing to put in money. So that's basically it. So it gave us a lot of credibility with these investors, and as a result of that, after this initial round of 100x, our valuation by March, when we did our second round of funding, it grew almost threefold. And because of how the state situation that the product was in, we moved our company to Bangalore in December of last year, and yeah, and we expanded the team. Right now, we are a team of, when we were working with a lot of interns, right now we are a team of almost 12 full-time employees with a few senior recruits who are really adding a lot of value. Yeah, and then we raised our next round of funding in March. We closed that at around 1.8 crore, and that's basically been our journey so far. But through this, one very important thing for me as an entrepreneur was this whole last 1 year, as it's been turbulent for all of us, right? How things have been, and how with the whole COVID situation itself. So things have been extremely turbulent for all of us, and that was the case for us as well. Even though this whole journey, when you look at it from the overview, when I think back 1 year ago, August 1st, I wouldn't have remotely thought that I would be sitting where I am right now in our this home in Bangalore. That I didn't imagine that. I didn't imagine that I'd be moving from Vellore to Chennai, then to Bangalore, or have an office in Bangalore with 12 full-time employees. None of this was something that we had planned for. It was not. We didn't plan that we would be, when we started off with Accio. We didn't plan that in March of next year we'll be having a 2 crore fundraise or anything of that sort. It basically, it was just us keeping at what we were doing. It was just us trying to put things together, trying to get things working, which we are still doing. I mean, there's still a long way to go, long way to go to capture this market and to get to where we want to go. So yeah, so it's a continuous work in progress, and I think my 2 cents would just be that that one thing about keeping at what you're doing, irrespective of what the situation is. Yeah, the pandemic will come and go. We might necessarily have a lot of personal issues with our uh, family and things like that. All of these things are going to keep coming and going, but I think as an entrepreneur, that's one thing you can never have an excuse for. You just need to figure out a way to put what you're building first. And if you think what you're building is not putting you in that situation, even though it might seem a bit negative, ideally you should probably think about something else, because you're going to face quite a bit of things. You're going to face a lot of issues. One thing is, yeah, fundraise is one thing. It solves one problem. Money solves one problem, huge problem. But even till date, we need to. That's pretty much the story of every startup, right? Be it Zomato with an IPO, or be it us. You need to put out, as an entrepreneur, your primary job is going to be to mitigate risk and put out fires every day. It might be technical, it might be from the client side, it might be from the product side. Your job is primarily to mitigate risk. And for doing that, unless you love what you're doing, it's going to be extremely difficult. So that's my 2 cents. And on a personal level, for you guys, apart from the company standpoint, so this was the journey of my company. But on a personal level, right, the whole 1 year was extremely topsy turvy. It was like a definition of roller coaster, I would say, because we got this huge contract in August of last year, but then we weren't exactly sure how we were going to fulfill it. So figuring out a plan for that, it was all very foggy as to how we are going to proceed. And then we figured out a plan for that. Then we had to get 3-4 people on, and then move to move all our stuff to that lab in Chennai. And doing that, I had to shift where I'm staying as well. So over the last 3 years, just the last 1 year since the pandemic started, I've almost moved 4 times to different locations. So that had to happen. And then in January, when we were going through this whole 100x thing and the fundraise thing, I had to have a surgery. And then after that was done, we did the second fundraise in March, and that was again a high point. And then again in April, we had a small COVID outbreak in the office before the second wave struck. where four of us, including me, we got COVID, and then we had to halt work for a while. And after that, after that, I had COVID situations at home, which then I had to fly to Delhi to handle that. So and this is the same for my co-founder as well. We've like both of us, it's been like a full roller coaster journey of sorts. And my basically the thing is that this is exactly why I'm saying, unless you are extremely passionate about what you're building, don't get into it, because there is a cloud right now, especially in universities. What I feel is people want to become entrepreneurs. People want to get into entrepreneurship because it's right now probably the 4 years back it was going for masters. Right now it seems like it's entrepreneurship. And if you really want to seriously become an entrepreneur, if you really want, and investors can see through this. Yeah, investors are very experienced. Investors can see through what exactly is your motive, what kind of a person you are, and why you want to build this. There's this thing they called, apart from, you guys heard a word of product market fit, there is this product founder market fit, which will not happen until all this falls in place, right? So you need to be very, very cautious about what you're building. You need to don't just do it for the sake of it's cool that you're starting a company. It will till you're till you're in college, it wouldn't really matter. Work on as many things as you want, explore as much as possible, build as many things, and if it's evolving into a startup, that's great. But after college starts, there's going to be this situation of convincing your after college ends. Sorry, after you're done with college, you're going to have to convince your parents. You're going to have to convince so many people. Every month you will have to convince yourself that you're heading in the right direction, because there is no one to exactly tell you that this is the right thing or the wrong thing to do. You're pretty much on your own with your team, and the onus is on you to figure it out, right? So considering all of this, uh, right now, right now it's a very risk-free environment when you're in college, because we were also building a lot of things. I think Tuvin and I, we were roommates, and we had a book where, well, not necessarily a book, but we had a place where we were at least discussing 5 ideas, if not more, every night, and coming up with random things, the randomest of random things that we could build. And yeah, that's ideally, I was very fortunate in that sense to find the right team very early on. But yeah, just have extreme conviction with what you're building. That would really help you convince, be it your family, be it investors, be it getting a co-founder, be it team. Like, so for example, we are in a situation where if I want to get an experienced person on board, why will a 30-year-old want to work with a 23-year-old, right? You need to show him that, you need to show him the difference. You need to show him something. And the job market also out there is like very competitive, because the people that we want to target, they can be easily snapped up by a Grey Orange or by a ABB or a Kuka for paying them much more. But being able to convince that person that this is the vision that we have and this is what we want to do, it's like a convincing. It's equivalent to convincing an investor, because people will not want to put their career in your hands unless you're extremely clear about what's going on. So yeah, so these are like probably few things that I've learned over the last 1 year of how our company has been able to get to this point, and what the way things look at the future. I think if I say one thing that all of you need to have for sure starting out, is that conviction in your idea. If you have an iota of doubt, make sure you're going through any extent to clear it up. And if you're not able to find an answer, then I think that's probably not going to keep you growing. I mean, that's not going to keep you motivated long enough to pursue that idea, right? And don't have any assumptions with anything, like be it with your market, be it with your client, be it with your technology. Assumptions are things that I find these days a lot of students doing. You assume that investor to paisa dalega hi, or you assume that this technology is going to work for sure, or you assume that this is the flow of my product and this is where things are going to go, right? So I think one very important thing is that, yeah, don't have any assumptions, don't have any if you have an iota of doubt, make sure you're getting it cleared either by getting in touch with a mentor, or getting in touch with who the thingQbator itself, getting in touch with the mentors that they have. Make sure you're able to clear it out properly. And that's okay. See, this whole journey, ideally, I mean, I don't know if this whole uh, thing was made you guys, I mean, what I said made you guys a bit scared or whatever. I don't think it should have, but if it did also, this is the truth. Yeah, I mean, this is just how things are going to be, and isn't it better to be aware of uh, how what you're getting into before you get into that? And that and simple, right? And this is the negative side of things, but the positive side of things are plentiful. Like when you wake up every day. I'm sorry, guys, just a minute. Yeah, someone is just ringing the bell. I'll just open the door. I'm really sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah. So the that's extremely important, right? Having these things sorted, having knowing what you're getting into is extremely important. But the other positive sides are that every day when you wake up, you're going to work on something very exciting. You know that that there are people that you have been very fond of working with. You have a good team that you can rely on. You go into the office. There is rarely a day when there's rarely a day when you're not looking forward to Monday. Even when things are going wrong. Like say for example, tomorrow, this weekend we have a very important deadline where we have to ship a robot to Nashik, and there are issues that we face. There are things, technology based issues, shipping issues, everything that comes up. But I'm still looking forward to tomorrow because it doesn't seem like work anymore. It's different, right? So as an entrepreneur, I think that's a major advantage that you have. You're working on what you want to work on. You're working on something that you're extremely passionate about, and things become a lot easier when you look at it from this angle. Whatever problems you face, whatever issues come up. Because yeah, as I said, every day is putting up a fire. Every day it might be some person falling sick, and that person might be very important for that particular day. So you need to figure out a solution, right? Yeah, that's basically been our experience with Accio. So initially we started off as Limify Tech, and then we kind of pivoted into Accio. We registered Accio under Limify as a trademark, and yeah, so coming back to now the goal is that being able to grow this company where we get to a state where we have enough money to invest in R&D, we have enough money to scale this product, and after that is done, we have a lot of bigger things that we want to do, which require a lot more funding, which require a lot more expertise, which require a more experienced team, right? So considering all of this, we like there will definitely be a point, because the whole blind technology thing that we started working on was we started working on because we wanted to create an impact, and we realized that this situation that we were in was not good enough to create that impact. The end goal is still going to be that 1 year down the line or 2 years down the line, when the company is in a good enough situation, we are going to see that whole thing through, because we will have the capability to do that in terms of experience as well as financial situation. Yeah, so we will see that through. We'll make sure we are getting it in the hands of a few visually impaired people in order for them to be able to have a different experience with respect to how they consume content. So that's definitely there in the pipeline, and that's something that we really want to do. But yeah, sometimes it's as people in college, and the enthusiasm and the excitement that we have usually, right, in that age group. That is a very important enthusiasm. That's a very important thing that you should have in order to be able to take these risks. But there are a few things that you can't foresee, and the most important thing is, when you come across that one thing that you cannot foresee, it is extremely important that you analyze that situation very, very logically, and not look at it like ki kuch na kuch ho jayega, or not let it to chance. Right? It's extremely important that you analyze that this is my current situation. Be truthful, basically. Like, the truth will be difficult, that yeah, you cannot work on this product right now. You have been spending 1 year on this. You cannot work on it right now because this is the situation. It will be difficult, but you just need to. Otherwise you'll be stuck in a huge let's say a vortex of sorts, which will be very difficult to come out of. And I've seen a lot of startups that go through that. Yeah, the journey becomes very, very turbulent and difficult, and that's one thing. And yeah, you can definitely not have answers to everything. There was a study with I don't remember where I read it, but there was a study where they surveyed people from IIM who are graduating, and they asked them, would you start a company? And they said they wouldn't. Because why? Because now they're extremely aware of everything that can go wrong and go right. They know how finances work, they know how business works. That's what they did for 2 years. So now they know what are the risks involved. But there is also another situation. There is also another, I don't know, post that Ritesh Agarwal had posted. If you had the answers to everything, you either already would be $1 million company, or you would probably have not started a company, because then you will understand how risky the whole thing is, right? But that foolishness, that's why Steve Jobs says, stay hungry, stay foolish. So that's where it came from. When you stay foolish, there are a few things that you do because of your hunger, which find solutions, which is not very straightforward, which is not something that a book can solve. Reading from a book can't solve, and that is why entrepreneurs are a different breed of people, right? So if you look at it, what is the one primary reason why a person working in an MNC is not going to work the same way? Your batchmates itself, the way your work hours or your uh, the way you're going about a few things with the person working with an MNC and person working on his own startup. Work time for the person working on a startup, work timings don't matter. They're it's not like they're smarter than the other person or anything like that. They're just like crazy. You just know you need to give your 24/7 into it to find out solutions, and you know how passionate about what you're extremely passionate about what you're doing, because it is your thing, right? It is something you're building from scratch, and automatically when that ownership comes up, uh, things change quite a bit, and that is why sometimes I find myself coming up with solutions that I thought a person smarter than me should have easily come up with. And the only reason is ownership, because I know that's my thing, and automatically it's human behavior that you want to do things differently and better when it's your thing, right? So that's just how humans work. And considering all of this, that's exactly the point, right? You won't have answers to everything. You won't have solutions to everything as well, and that's okay. That's completely okay. But as I said, you need to have those stones that you're leaving unturned, turned as soon as possible in order to get clarity to grow your business in the right sense. So that's yeah, I think that's probably my uh, 2 cents on how our journey has been and what I've learned from it personally over the last 1 year, especially last 1 year. I mean, the whole that one thing I'll tell you, the whole journey of being an entrepreneur has been extremely rewarding for me as a person. Like when I look back at it, like it's like all is well that ends well, right? Even though irrespective of how many issues we had and everything, uh, it's extremely rewarding as a person. You get to learn a lot. You grow quite a bit because you're dealing with a lot of things, right? Like for example, like as a 23-year-old, I'm probably dealing with more money than I should be dealing with, or I thought I would be dealing with at this age, right? And so these things basically, as long as you're adaptable and as long as you're moldable, these things will mold you in the right framework. And yeah, and as the title goes in terms of how we started in the pandemic, I think the most important thing is you don't have the pandemic as a reason for not doing something because it's become quite. Yeah, so it's sorry guys. Yeah, so it's become quite mainstream right now, and you just have to of course be within the COVID protocols. I mean, we masking and social distancing and things like that. But solution has to be around those protocols. Like say for example, when we wanted to build the first robot, it was just me basically sitting and cutting rods and soldering things and designing PC. Like it's just like you need to create that supply chain. You need to evolve your supply chain accordingly. You need to find vendors who are going to be able to supply even during the lockdown. Yeah, you just need to get things done. That's basically the definition, right? Like what is an ideal job description for an entrepreneur? My definition is just a guy who gets things done and without a reason for it. Yeah. So yeah, guys. I think that's basically my 2 cents on how it has been for us to run a company amidst the pandemic. And yeah, that's about it. If you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to take that.
Yeah. Thank you, Pranav. And over to participants. Any questions?
Hello.
Yeah, hi Sunil. Yeah, tell me.
My question is, what is the biggest difficulty that you have faced while startups, while starting a one company?
Okay. So the biggest difficulty, more than difficulty, I would say challenge. So the biggest challenge for me personally, Sunil, has been uh, being accountable to people. And what I mean is, say for example, when you're recruiting someone, right? If you're recruiting a person, I'm not talking about like accountable investors or clients and all that, just your team. So as a startup founder, you exactly know what is your cash in hand, what is your runway, where are you heading, right? And you have all that information. Now when you want to get a team member on board, right? when you have that information, that person is also risking their life. That person is also risking their life. I mean, their career. They're getting something on board, right? So you're accountable to that person. So that I would say right now, my biggest stress or my biggest thing that bothers me is this accountability. That more than, yeah, I am working on something I'm passionate about. I'm building my company, and if it goes well, my gains are quite a bit. But making sure my team, if the company doesn't go as planned, what is the how are we going to mitigate that? How are we going to keep things going? And how are we going to mitigate a situation where we have to lay off people, or where we run out of funds, right? So that ideally is the biggest thing bothering me at this point. But in terms of and the other thing would be, when you look at you can consider this as a more overviewed challenge. I mean, as a more challenge from a bird's eye view. But if you look at a day-to-day challenge, right now in the pandemic, the biggest thing has been procurement for a hardware company. Getting things on time, getting deliveries done on time. That's been like the biggest challenge, I would say, on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
I have another follow-up question.
Yeah, Ramesh.
Once you started, no, like how much time that you took to get a first investor actually?
So ideally, the way those things work right now, right? It doesn't really matter how much. There's no fixed answer to how much time you have before you approach an investor. Because, as I said, right, most investors right now. So after speaking to our investors, one thing I understood is when they are making. So if an investor is giving you their first check, right, they are not looking at your product. They are not looking at how big your. They're of course looking at how big your market is, but they're not necessarily looking at what stage your product is. It's an important factor, but it is not as important as it is for later on funding rounds. The two most important factors are, one, you as a person. Like, they're investing in the founders. Like, for an early stage company, you don't have any assets. It's not like you have a huge building that you can sell off. It's not like you have a lot of machinery that is an asset to the company. What you have is the founders. The founders are the two people who are going to, two or three or how many other people who are going to be there irrespective of what's happening, right? If the pandemic happens and if the company is not able to, if there's a complete lockdown and the companies may not able to operate out of the office and people are leaving, still the both of us are going to be there irrespective of what happens, right? So what they're going to look at first is the founders. What is the mindset of the founders? How accountable are they? What is their skill set? Is that product founder market fit there, right? So say for me, because we were working on robotics. As I said, my 4 years of college was fully and full only in robotics, and be it competitions. I've gotten the opportunity to go abroad a couple of times and things like that. So considering all this, they knew that okay, there is like a product founder market fit, right? So an example is that. So say if you're working on fintech, for example, do you have someone from the financial background in your team as a founding member? Do you have another experienced person in your team? What is the exact founder situation? And the other thing is the market, right? How big is the market? So if the market is big and the founders are good and founders are adaptable and founders are working hard, right? Money can build your product, right? Money can, if it's not something very, moonshot, like say building rockets, right? Building rockets is still an uncertainty. I mean, them working perfectly is still like not as common as, building let's say printing a book or building a mobile phone, for that example. As long as these things fall in place and your market is good and you as a founder are very clear about what you're getting into, investor doesn't really care about how further along your product is and things like that. Those things do matter. I'm not saying they do not matter, but it's a smaller percentage. I know startups that have an amazing product that have not got funded because of one of the founders or a couple of the founders, or the way, or because they're a single co-founder and single founder and things like that, right? So yeah, so there's no particular answer. There's no particular timeline that okay, after 1 year I can go for investment.
Actually, what I thought, like, what is your transition period? Like, how much time that you took to get a first investor?
How much time we took? We took about 3 months to get our first investor, and then we took about 3 months more to get our second investor.
And like, how you approach that? Like how you can approach an investor for an because once you started, once you got an idea, okay,
Yeah.
once you got a founder, once you started and you started working, there's a market is there for this product, for our
Yeah,
product,
yeah,
and you started working on it. It is not still not, maybe it may be an MVP, like still you reached that level. How you start approaching investors, because some people will not have they don't have any idea about how to approach an investor, or they don't know how to reach an approach actually. In that kind of situation, how to kind of roadmap, how you approach, like that is my question.
So in all honesty, Sunil, we necessarily didn't have a roadmap. Like we didn't have a roadmap that in September we'll be raising 25 lakhs and in March we'll be raising 1.8. But that is not a roadmap at all. But how we did approach our first investors were that we were just being like, it was mostly cold emails. We had a good business plan in place. We had so what we did do was, as I told you guys, finding answers to unknown things, right? We made sure we didn't have any stone that was left unturned in our pitch deck. Mostly from an engineering background, people tend to ignore the finances a lot. So my co-founder, yeah, he spent a lot of time on getting that we had a proper, Excel sheet with everything depicted as to, okay, if we have these many team members, if we have these many things, this is where we can get, and this is how the product can launch faster to market, and we can sell 20 robots a month, and we can get to this situation. Having that clarity in however boring Excel sheets may be, having that clarity is something that I have noticed that a lot of early stage entrepreneurs, especially out of college from an engineering background, miss. Having that how your finances would work. So projections are something that you really can't be very accurate about. But what is so the projections, they show your investor what is running in your head, like how fast you feel that the company can scale, rather than is this exactly how the company would scale, right? So that was a very important thing. Having a lot of clarity about your product is going to be deployed in these sectors. This is how much time the product is going to take to make. This is how our finances look. If we raise this much money now, we'll be able to recruit this many people, and we'll be able to get to market in this much time. So having these answers is very important. Having that clarity is very important, and you need to start building that network from when you're in college. You need to start having that confidence. Be it like so. So when what the investor ideally has is, when they are investing, especially in early stage entrepreneurs like us, they have references of people that they can potentially talk to about you, and they have your social media, right? Social media is a very important aspect right now for all of this. So be it the content you put out on LinkedIn, be it the kind of people you interact with. Like say, for example, for us, for background reference, we had people that we had worked with in the past in the robotics domain itself. Then we had very influential professors from my alma mater who are ready to give us recommendation if the investor calls. And we had yeah, that's what. So that network, right? So having that credibility is very important, and having that clarity. So start building that out, start building that network. And when you build that network, what also happens is there is a compounding effect of where you also learn how different people are going about approaching investors, what kind of investors are out there, what is an investor exactly expecting from a company. Because as I said, now the fact that you're asking me this question is because I can see very clearly that you have a lot of assumptions in your head about how investment process works. And that's exactly what I said. You need to clear that out as soon as possible. And the answer to that is, I don't think I can explain it to you immediately over this call, but the answer to that is mostly with interacting with a lot of very knowledgeable people on social media, be it on LinkedIn or any form of media, right? So that did really help us out. That did give me a lot of clarity as to how we can approach investors, and that was basically it. And apart from that, most investors, they are very uh, recipient to emails. Like even if they don't reply to your email, they will go through it because they don't want to miss out on a good opportunity. They know that there might be any guy in a nook and corner of this country who's coming up with the next big thing. So they don't want to miss out on any opportunity. You're also giving them an opportunity to be a part of your journey and have a piece of your pie, right? So they will not want to miss out. And if you just cold email an investor, they will open your mail for sure. If they're interested, they will reply, right? So you should ideally target, like depending on what product your sector, what sector your product is in. Sorry. So if it's in the biomed sector, right? Biomedical investors don't usually invest until you have a full product ready, because it's a very risky thing. Biomed has more risk because there is trials. The product takes longer time to build. So that's when you need to approach grants. Doesn't mean you don't need to work on the product, but you need to start applying for grants. There is BIRAC, there is DST that are giving out a lot of grants. So you need to get market, do the trials. After those trials are done, once you approach the investor, they will throw money at it because it's a proven product in the market that doctors want. So for biomedical and anything related to healthcare products, the product development phase is very important, and the whole investment process is longer. When you look at SaaS investments happen in a jiffy. SaaS investments, like if the idea is good, I know companies like my colleagues, like my batchmates from VAT itself, who raised funding from Y Combinator, and they were just 2 months into the product. They didn't even have a full-fledged product done because their idea was really good. So Y Combinator gave the money immediately. So that's the thing, right? So that's just ideally how it works. It depends on your market. If your market, say for our robotics market, it's an up and booming market. I had a basic MVP and they were happy, right? So that's just about it. It varies a lot, and for you to understand how it varies for your market, you need to talk to a lot of people. You need to be out there. You need to you need to see what people are posting about this whole investment situation, how different sectors work. It's very important to know your sector and how the investment opportunity work. Like right now, off the top of my head, I can tell you what is the investment that each of my competitors have and how much money they have raised. Right? So that's important. You need to know who your competitors are, and you need to know what's their investment cycle. That will help you understand what your investment cycle should be. Right. So there is no one solution fits all answer for the investment process. Our process was our process. If I tell you, if me sharing that with you will not say that your process will be the same. That's basically my.
And just another question.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to be an entrepreneur, like you may be in it may be in software or hardware, anything,
Mm-hmm.
irrespective of
Mm-hmm.
anything. What are the three skills that is very important for like what is your suggestion? Any three skills that you need to have? First, top three skills that you need to have to enter, like anything that.
So I think, see, you cannot try to learn everything. You need one thing is you need to find a complementary person to you. Right, it cannot be both you and your co-founder doesn't need to have all the skills. That's one thing. So one thing is, yeah, find if you ask me more than skill, I would say requirement, find a good co-founder which will help you learn only the necessary skills for you to run your aspect of the business. And other skill, if you ask me, there is no specific soft skill or like there is no specific key learn this technology or anything like that. Be as adaptable as possible. That would be like the primary thing for everything. If you are
Can
adaptable as possible, yeah.
And adaptability. Okay.
Yeah, adaptable. Be as adaptable as possible, which is that if today you need to learn about finance, be ready to learn about finance. If tomorrow you need to learn about C++, be ready to do that. If day after tomorrow you need to go and solder, be ready to do that. Like when you're starting out, your job as a founder is to basically fit into any of the puzzle pieces missing in your company. And once you have investment and once things happen, then you can fit those puzzle pieces with other people and you grow the business. But when you're starting, that adaptability is like extremely important. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pranav, answering
Yeah.
all my questions. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I'll get back. I'll get back to your LinkedIn. Thank you so much.
Sure. I think we had some questions in the chat as well. Arvindo, yeah, I'm hearing quite a lot about blockchain technologies. What are your thoughts about the same one? Honestly, Arvindo, blockchain is one thing I'm not going to say anything that I'm not like extremely clear about. So blockchain is one technology that I have very consciously stayed away from. I don't know why. So I don't think I'll be the right person to answer that properly or give you a very convincing answer. I'm not very much into how blockchain works and what things happen, how things work. I think yeah, that's like one technology that I've not explored at all, blockchain, crypto, and those things. So I should probably do it in the future, but I don't think I have an answer to that that would be justified. Partha, how do you set deadlines for yourself and the team? So this is a very tricky thing. It's something that even we are still perfecting. So what we are using right now is we use Scrum. I think most of you would have heard of Scrum. Scrum is basically you have a sprint-based system rather than a deadline-based system. It's very tricky as when you start off a company to set those systems in place. But yeah, we use Scrum. We try to estimate how much time a project is going to take, and we work backwards from that. We see in every week. So our sprints are usually 1 week sprints, and we try to finish off tasks for that week in that sprint itself. But yeah, I'm still learning how to estimate my deadlines properly. In all honesty, for us to be able to give, like, I want to get to a situation where if a client comes and says, I want your robot to be deployed and this is what, I want to get to a situation where we are able to estimate exactly this is the deadline and be able to meet the deadline stress free. But that takes a lot of time and effort. That's something that I'm also doing a lot of research on. I've been reading 3-4 books that have, I don't know if you guys have heard of Jeff Sutherland, who's the founder of this whole Scrum system. So I've been reading quite a few books about him to be able to learn this as well. So this is a skill actually that I'm also picking up on the go. Probably let you know once I have more clarity about it. Yeah. But right now we use Notion and we use this whole Scrum system. It's pretty easy to implement on Notion, but sticking to it is what I'm talking about, which is like pretty difficult. But yeah, we use Notion as a software to handle it. Yeah.
Yes, guys. Any other questions?
I think Sunil has asked something about product IP. Sunil, is it like specific to my product or product IP in general?
In general, to it, maybe it
General,
is your product.
General. I didn't get it. General or my product?
Anything generalized. Like
Yeah, general. Yeah. So generally, product IP. I think again that also varies sector to sector. Yeah. When you're building healthcare, for example, or when you even any deep tech, you of course need product IP. Uh, it's an important thing. It adds a lot of credibility to your product and the technology that you're backing when you want to raise investment as well. But it's not a game changer. It's for example, the clients that you've spoken to, right? Don't necessarily care about what our IP is or what is unique. They just want the solution to work and it to be implemented. So I think yeah, that's very important. I mean, product IP is very important, but it's not a deal breaker. That's what I feel. It varies, as I said. A lot of these things vary. It cannot be generalized. It varies sector to sector. If you're building SaaS, no one cares about product AP. If you're building robotics, people do care about product AP, but for our particular product, it's not as important as it is for maybe, let's say, look at the Spot Robot. Spot Robot product AP is important. So product IP more than financial aspects, it's more to, let's say, share the credibility of a product and procure, save your um product in the longer run. But as an early stage company, if you're able to get one or two IPs, it gives you a momentum, but not necessarily a deal breaker. Yeah, that's with product IP. And yeah,
Can you
Aditya.
share about
Yeah,
your product, the
yeah.
generalized?
Sorry, I'll just probably take Aditya's question and Omkar's question. I think it's been hanging on for a while, yeah, and I'll get back to that. Yeah. So being at age 22 of fresher, what really gave you the push to start a company rather than for Java for a great package skill set? Studying or everything. Yeah. So I think my primary goal was so when I started in second year. So this whole entrepreneurial, like wanting to do something different and wanting to do something that was not mainstream or that was not something that everyone was doing was a very important aspect of how I went about life in general. Like I was never happy with doing something that a lot of people are doing. And that then I identified in my second year that okay, this the thing that I need to do right now is this seems interesting. Second year when I didn't have much information about how to become what it is to become an entrepreneur, whatever, and I was like, I had a lot of ideas, I had a lot of things that I was trying to build on a very maker or engineer kind of situation, but not necessarily. I was never looking at it from a commercial standpoint, right? And that's when I realized that yeah, probably because I always wanted to do something on my own. I always wanted to start like in my first semester itself. We tried starting an NGO with our with one of our senior, me and Tuin, both of us. We tried starting an NGO and things like. So from the first year, both me and Tuin have been like wanting to do something that is offbeat, and that's not something that a sane person would do, and that kind of just compounded, I would say, in me understanding that yeah, I want to work on something on my own. I want to work on my own idea, and all my internships. Like whenever I did internships, I identified that I never really enjoyed. So if you ask me, the answer that I'm going to give you now, right now, shouldn't be an answer for you to take up entrepreneurship, but this was part of a reason, right? So I never really enjoyed working for someone, but that shouldn't be a reason for you to become an entrepreneur. It was a reason, like when it was not a reason, it was a part of the reason why it was all like a compounding thing, right? So I didn't really enjoy that. I wanted to have more control over what I'm building. I wanted to and understand more about what I'm doing, and I did have a lot of options, right? So I didn't apply. I didn't give my GRE or anything like that. I didn't want to go study abroad because I found again that was something that I found like a lot of people were doing, and I necessarily didn't want to follow that path, and it was not my cup of tea. And when you look at job offer, I did have like I was interning at a company then, and I was like probably one of the very few mechanical engineers who was able to get. I was like offered, that company was ready to offer me about 14, 15 lakhs and things like that. So but it didn't really fascinate me. I didn't see that, yeah, 5 years down the line, am I seeing myself in that company, or am I going to be able to continue sustaining in that environment? I didn't see that happening. And this risk of, this whole situation of an entrepreneur where, I'm not just building tech every day. I'm not just doing marketing or management every day. I'm doing a mix of a lot of things, and I'm trying to balance a lot of things. And there's a lot of, I think, yeah, for me, I thrive a lot on uncertainty, and I understood that I don't like things to be certain. So yeah, that was probably a driving force. And at 22, the answer, like about the age, right? The direct answer to that was, yeah, stay hungry, stay foolish, because I was foolish, as if the confidence that I had was not because I was aware that I'm going to face all of these issues, right? Which is basically you are not aware about it, which is kind of being foolish, right? You exactly don't know what you're getting into. And I honestly, in all honesty, I didn't know what I was getting into it. And doesn't mean I wouldn't, if I go back now that I know all this, I wouldn't get into again. I would get into it. But that confidence that I got at that time was from a lot of foolishness rather than aware ki, my company will do this, then I will do this, then I will get there, and I will have a 50-member team in 3 years. That was never the plan or anything of that sort. Which is in other cases, when say you're going for masters, you know that okay, 2 years I'm going to study, then I have to pay back my loan, I need to work somewhere, and then this is how my trajectory is. I never had anything like that. So yeah, at 22 I got the confidence because I was foolish. Nothing else. Yeah. Omkar, how do you decide on how much to spend on R&D? So yeah, Omkar, I think there is right now. I honestly, we haven't necessarily gotten to a point where I can put a number on it. But if you ask me what we did when we were splitting our whole fundraise, was that we tried to estimate how much we would be putting in R&D, which was about, because the product was a deep tech product and required a lot of research, definitely. It was about 30 to 40% uh, of our budget of sorts. So we there's no formula to it. Again, it's specific to your product. You need to understand, okay, if it's say for my product, I don't need to go through 15 clinical trials, or I don't need to go through I don't say for a SaaS product, you have literally no R&D apart from bunch of people sitting and programming, right? Of course, there will be a time where you put the product together and figure things out. But when you talk about hardware, R&D is different. So things are very different. And when you are don't and other two cents also is that don't get too worked up if you're not able to estimate something properly with respect to your budget. The answer to that, why I'm telling you that, is when we estimated our fundraise, how we are going to go about it and how the budget split up is going to be. We estimated that on lawyer, legal fee, and chartered accountants and things like that, we'll be spending only about 10 to 15 lakhs. That was our estimate. But the sad truth is that we've already spent that much in the last 3 months, right? So you really can't estimate. That's something that you get a lot through going through that process, and because there are a lot of smaller things that you really can't predict. And what you can do is the best is that there's no standard. Again, there's no standard formula to it. You need to go through your market and understand. I can give you guys more one-on-one answers if you're having like a one-on-one discussion. I know more about what you're building, but yeah, you need to like understand more about what you're building. Yeah. Yep. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, I think there is no more question. Pranav, thank you so much. Actually, this is really an insightful and very, very deep discussion. Thanks for spending your time with us. So thanks a lot. And I actually requesting your support in our startup track. So actually, we are running 3 tracks in this Cisco thingQbator program. So in the mid of September, mostly we will start our startup track. So we need more business and marketing and the startup advice. So maybe, if possible, if the time allows, I'm requesting you to join with our startup track as a mentor. I mean, it depends on your
Yeah,
availability.
yeah, definitely, Akhil. Yeah, definitely. I would love to do that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Pranav. Thanks a lot. Thanks on the behalf of Cisco thingQbator team. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you so much for having me, and have a nice day, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.